Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says Death Trap. Firework industry is well known to be an hazardous industry, right from the initial phase of manufacturing till the transportation and storage of all these fireworks in a designated place. There is high risk to life and property, which we consider in number of cases. In the present scenario, once again, there was a blast at a private firework factory at Achankulam village near Sattur in Virudnagar district of Tamil Nadu. What exactly happened? Fireworks that were stored in this particular place broke out, a blast occurred which resulted in death of number of people. In this particular backdrop, we have to understand what measures have to be taken going forward when it comes to the firework industry. First, important factual data, which is the monitoring agency when it comes to the government. We have the Petroleum and Explosive Safety Organization, which happens to be a government organization which monitors the firework industry. What are the major causes of fire accidents? Let's try and understand what are these causes. First up, when we look at explosions, they're usually caused by faulty handling because of dangerous raw materials that which are used in the firecracker industry. Let's say for example, there are untrained workers, or let's say for example, there are people who have worked on a piece rate system as well. Let's say for example, I am a person who is not having a permanent job. I want to make quick money in a particular day on a day-to-day basis. So what do? I head to this particular firecracker industry. I work as much as possible, make some quick money and come out of this particular firecracker industry. So what is happening here? There is untrained workers who are working on a piece rate system. They are untrained and as a result they may not know how to handle this particular cracker and its disposal, which results in faulty handling, resulting in what is called as fire accident. The second reason is there are number of factories which follow safety norms, but there are also factories which violate the safety norms. What are these safety norms? The government of India and the respective states has given certain guidelines. These guidelines have to be complied by the industries. In case they are violating the set guidelines given by the state governments in their respective states, which leads to factories faulting on these safety norms, and as a result what we actually see is increasing cases of fire accidents when it comes to the firecracker industry. Apart from this, there are unlicensed units as well. What are these unlicensed units? Every firecracker industry will be given permission by the government of the respective states, but there are certain officers which are opened, industries that are opened which are not licensed by the state government. That is where they periodically vary and violate the safety norms established by the government, and as a result what we have is the second cause of concern, that is violation of the safety norm. The third factor is that industry is known for employing the child workers. Ideally they are not supposed to employ them, which is what is given in the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Act of 2015, and at the same time it is also given in the Constitution of India as well, that child workers should not be employed in the hazardous working conditions. But in spite of these laws, norms established, what we have is these children employed in the hazardous sectors. This increases the risk of accidents, and these are the major causes when it comes to the fire accidents in the firecracker industry. In order to overcome all these issues that have been surfacing, loss of property, loss of human lives, what we have to do is to take measures when it comes to the fire accidents in the firecracker industry. What are these measures? The first important measure is the automation of the dangerous processes. What do we mean by it? This particular sector is a labor intensive sector. What do we mean by it? It means that there are more number of people who are employed in the firecracker industry. Back in the 2000s, there were industrial bodies who were working in the firecracker industry. They had convinced the parliament that this particular sector of firecracker industry will move away from the labor intensive process to what is called as mechanization or the automation process. The parliament had also given consent to it as well, but in spite of that particular protocol which was insisted by the parliament, which was also told by the industrial lobbying group, there is yet to be automation operation of this particular sector. So the way forward when it comes to controlling the impact of the fire accidents in the firecracker industry is to automate the entire process so that there is minimal presence of these human beings, which is leading to the property loss and the human losses. So the machine should be used to mix the chemicals so that the risk caused to the human beings or the risk caused by the human error can be minimized because of this particular process. The second important measure is to keep manufacturing within the factories. What exactly happens? As we initially discussed, there is something called as the safety norm. There is something called as the license as well. What exactly happens? There is a particular factory. Ideally, all the manufacturing or mixing of the chemicals should happen in a designated place where the license is given. But what exactly happens? There is subcontracting that takes place. What is this subcontracting? I, as an industrial person, I would have been given the permission by the state government. But what do? I give this particular responsibility to another person. So ideally, I have an industry. This particular industry will have to follow the guidelines. It has to be manufacturing within that particular premise. But instead, I give it or subcontract to a third person. So the third person may be conducting this manufacturing operations in some other place, not in a designated place. Sometimes this particular place will happen to be a home as well. Sometimes this particular place is where the children are employed as well. And as a result, what we actually see is increasing cases of fire accidents. So keeping manufacturing within the factories will have to be strictly monitored by the state government. Then there is a possibility that whenever people are recruited, there is no training that is given to them, so they do not know how to mix a particular chemical, or they might not know what should be the quantity that has to be mixed. So what exactly happens? There is a mismatch which can also create a problem in the firecracker industry. So the third major measure is training them before hiring. Usually when it comes to the firecracker industry, training does not happen. They're directly put on board, they are asked to mix the chemicals. But in the present scenario and going forward, training should become mandatory is the third measure that we have to look at. The fourth is with respect to the ending overcrowding. What exactly happens? Let's say for example Shivakashi, which happens to be one of the major regions of firecracker industry. What exactly happens is, let's say there is a small room. This particular room, there is lot of congestion. More people are present who are working in this firecracker industry. So what exactly happens? There is the average room temperature which is not able to keep up to the human temperature, and as a result, heat reactive chemicals are prone to explosion as well. So what we have to do, in a designated place, in a particular region, in a particular premise, there has to be minimum number of people beyond which they should not be people, and as a result, ending overcrowding is another important measure. Periodic inspections at all these factories will have to be conducted. So it is not only about laying these guidelines, it is not only about having all these guidelines on the website, but whether this is implemented or not will have to be seriously taken into picture by the central government as well as by the state governments. What is happening of late? There are licensed off factories, there are unlicensed factories as well. So what we have is increasing cases of industries working in the firecracker industry. So what we require is the periodic inspections at the factories, both at the licensed ones and also the unlicensed one. And in case they have violated the set parameters and the guidelines, this is where the government will have to impose penal provisions, and this cannot be negotiable in the present scenario. Apart from this, the management must also give top priority to the safety as well. In spite of management giving the priority, there might be certain people, that is the workers, who may not get the information. So as a result, information sharing from the management to the people to follow the protocols so that these safety rules are meant for the people, and awareness and knowledge generation will have to be given from the management side to the worker side as well. Sometimes the management does not take the responsibility as well. This is where the imposing authority or the governments in that particular state will have to bring the management under the law books. So these are some of the measures when it comes to cracking on the firecracker industry. In the present scenario, because of this fire accident that we have witnessed in the state of Tamil Nadu, we have the state government of Tamil Nadu which has said that rupees 3 lakh will be given to the kin of the deceased and rupees 1 lakh will be given. Apart from this, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also said will be given about 2 lakh from the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund and about 50,000 will be provided to those who have been seriously injured. Therefore, going forward, what we require is the political will. What we require is all stakeholders coming together. What we require is new changes that has to be introduced in the labor reforms, changes that has to be introduced on the technological level. If all of this does come into picture, we can minimize the impact of the fire accidents caused in the firecracker industry is what we have to understand in this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says geospatial data policy liberalized. Let me explain this concept in simple of terms. What is geospatial data? As the very name denotes, geo, spatial and data. Data here stands for information. The geo here stands for geography. Spatial here stands for something which occupies the space. So in a particular geography or in a geographical region, if there is something which is occupying a space and if that information is taken, fed into the system, that is what is called as geospatial data. Let me give you a simple of examples. Let's say you have your house. You're living in a house. That particular location is what is called as geospatial location. Or there is a pole next to your house which is carrying the electricity. That pole is called as a geospatial data. So what is geospatial data here? It is nothing but objects, events or phenomena that have a location on the surface of the earth. This can be broken down into two types. One is what is called as the static data. The other is what is called as the dynamic data. What is the static data? Something which does not travel, something which does not move. For example, our houses is what is called as a static data. Or let's say for example a road which is present in that particular place, it does not move. That is what is called as static data. Or let's say for example there is a focus or a epicenter where an earthquake has occurred. So there is a point where it has occurred. That is also what is called as a static data. Another important picture is, let's say for example, malnutrition in a particular region. The malnutrition in a particular region will have to be pictorically represented on the map. So this particular data which does not change at least for let's say 1 year is what is called as static data. So what is static data here? Something which does not change, which has permanency or it has permanency for a specific period of time is what is called as static data. Now what is this dynamic data? Dynamic data is something which is moving. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have traveled from your home to your office or from your home to your schools, from the office to your houses. So you are moving dynamically. You are moving right now. You are moving from your office to the theater or from the theater to a restaurant. So what is happening? There is constant movement. This constant movement is what is called as dynamic data. Another example of dynamic data can also be infectious disease as well. Let me give you the example. Let's say with respect to COVID-19, there was a particular region which was impacted. Now it started spreading to another region. It started spreading to another region. So what is happening? This particular data, when it is put up on the map, which is dynamic in nature, which is changing every single day, every hour, that is what is called as dynamic data. So what is geospatial data here? On the basis of geography, on the basis of space, on the basis of information, it is fed on static basis, on the dynamic basis, where you have this particular data which will give you enough idea about what needs to be processed in the near future. When it comes to the static part, let's say for example there is a particular building, there is a school, there is a hospital, or there is any of the government offices or any of the buildings. All this represents a geospatial data. If I have to head from my home to a particular location, that is represented with what is called as vector coordinates. So what are these vector coordinates? Let's say for example, I have to move from my place to another place. This is where I need a representation. That representation is represented in the form of vector data. This can be grouped into three types. What are those? One is what is called as point data. The other is what is called as line data. The third is what is called as polygon. So what is this particular data, or how is this particular data collected? As I told you, there are 3 points. One is the point data. It gives you a clear picture of that particular point. Let's say for example, you have to go to the school. It is represented in the form of a point, or you want to go to a restaurant. So that particular point is what is called as a point, which gives the location of that particular place. Then we have what is called as the line vector. What is this line vector? Let's say for example, you have to move from one road to another. This is represented in the form of line. That is what is called as the line type of vector file. Then the third is what is called as polygon. What is this polygon? Let's say for example, there is a particular school building. There is a huge compound of that school building. So this is the boundary of that particular school. So this is represented in the form of a polygon, or the boundary that defines a particular building or a government office or a hospital or an education center. In fact, even your houses which has a specific boundary is represented in what is called as the polygon, or the shape of the boundary is what is called as polygon vector file. So when it comes to geospatial data, what we actually see is that we are taking the information of the geographical location on the basis of space occupied with respect to the location information, attribute information as well. What is this attribute information? When it comes to the spatial event, what is a spatial event? Something which occupies the space, and there is something called as non-spatial information as well. Let's say there is an event that is occurred in that particular place, or anything which does not hold the space is what is called as attributable information. So the characteristics of the object, or a particular event has taken place, or there was a phenomena that has taken place, all this will be taken into picture and the data will be collected, fed into the system. So this particular process is what is called as geospatial location. Why are we discussing this? That is because the government in the present scenario has liberalized the collection of the geospatial data. Before we understand what is this liberalization, we have to understand what is the present policy. When you go back to the present policy, what we have is this particular policy which has continued for about 70 odd years. Why? Currently it has been dominated by the Indian government as well as by the government run agency such as the Survey of India, and private companies need to navigate a system of permissions from different departments of the government. Let's say if I as a private company or as a private organization, if I have to collect the data, what do I have to do? I have to go stand in front of the doors of the government department. I need to knock their doors. I need to take their permission, and only when I can take this particular information, store it in my particular system. So currently, when you look into this particular system, it is bureaucratic in nature. Why? In case I have to create a new spatial data about a particular location, I need to get permission from the government of India. When you go back to the 70 years and after that, why the government had such a restriction is because of the security issues. The government believed that if too much of data is given to the private organizations, this could result in security problem for the country, and as a result there were restrictions. And now this is opened up where private organizations need not have to knock the doors of the government, but they can create their own geospatial data with respect to their location, with respect to their work, and what is that they are expecting with respect to their work. Let me give you an example. Let's say Zomato, or let's say for example Amazon, or let's say for example Flipkart, or let's say for example Swiggy. What do? They want this geospatial data. Why? Because from the restaurant there is a particular vendor who sends this particular food and this has to reach to you. So how do? They require the geospatial data. Earlier they had to ask the government for the permission, and this also required huge licenses and the permission, and there was was a lot of red tape that was involved. So when they asked the government for the permission, because there was excessive bureaucratization, it took months, in fact delaying the projects of the implementation of the private data as well. And as a result, to remove this deadlock between the government and the private, now private companies, private organizations, startups can develop their own geospatial data with respect to what they intend to develop to meet the objective of their application. Apart from this, let's say for example, if the government has to develop the infrastructure, it again requires the geospatial data, which means what are the geographical conditions of that particular region, what exactly is the dearth in that particular region, for which the government will have to invest huge amount of money. And at the same time, if private entrepreneurs are already present, they want to enhance on the infrastructure platform in a particular region, the private entrepreneurs will increase the investment. So what is happening right now? As of now, there is huge lack of data with respect to the infrastructure modules when it comes to the government. But if the private entrepreneurs, the private investments are able to make the investments, this can also be used by the government as well. So what is the change that is made? Until now, the central government wanted all Indian firms to seek the licenses, additional approvals to create and publish the topographical data. Now, local firms will no longer need all these licenses or other permissions to collect, generate, store and share the geospatial data of the country. So what are the advantages of this liberalization? The government will now have more players in the field. This will increase the competition. This will have more Indian companies in the global market. They would be able to provide accurate data to the government, and at the same time, this can also be used by the individuals and the government to generate enough data for improving, validating a particular region. Startups and businesses will now be able to use this particular data, especially in the sector of e-commerce. What would happen? This would increase the employment opportunities, and at the same time, they would be able to deliver their goods on time to the intended user. Indian companies might also develop indigenous apps as well. For example, an Indian version of Google Apps. As of now, most of us would be using Google Maps, but an alternative to this, which is being developed by India, is a pride for all of us where we would be able to use it. So such applications can also be developed by the Indian companies. There is also likelihood that we will have more public-private partnerships with the opening of the sector, and as a result, as we initially discussed, the government would now be able to take this particular information, bring up new types of infrastructural projects, or wherever they see a dearth with respect to the information with respect to a particular region, they would again be able to add value in that particular region. This will also increase the export of data to the foreign companies and countries, which will boost the economy overall, is what we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says tolerance deficit. This article here is speaking about the toolkit which Greta Thunberg had shared, and now it has become a major controversy. Why? Because Disha Ravi, who had edited this particular toolkit, is currently under the law books and is facing the court of law. In this particular backdrop, we have to understand what is this toolkit all about, why there was a controversy, what is the issues surfacing this particular toolkit, and what needs to be done way forward when it comes to such issues. First, we have to understand what is this toolkit. A toolkit is nothing but a booklet or a document that is created to explain a cause or an issue. What do we mean by it? Let's say, for example, with respect to the Farm Acts, there might be people who would not be aware of this particular issue. So what does this toolkit do? Anyone who is unfamiliar with the ongoing farmer protest that is taking place in India would be able to understand what is the farmer issue all about. They would be able to make decisions on whom to support, whether it is the farmers or it is the government, and they would be able to come up with a conceptual clarity and bring in their own analysis to this particular issue. So what is this toolkit? A toolkit is nothing but a document. It is nothing but a booklet which will give an idea about the entire issue that which is surfacing in the society. So what exactly happened in the present scenario? There was some some suggestions that was incorporated when it comes to the farmer protest. What are these? There were actions that were supposed to be taken according to this toolkit. What are these action plans? Tweet your support to the Indian farmers, use hashtag farmers protest, stand with farmers. This was one of the action plan which was present in that particular toolkit. And if people wanted to know what this particular issue was and if they stand with the farmers, one of the suggested action plan according to the toolkit was to use these hashtags. Then it also said call or email any of your government representatives and ask them to take action, sign online petitions and take action to divest from the fossil fuel industry. So it is asking that those people who are in line and supporting the farmers, they have to speak to the government officials and ask what measures have to be taken so that they can support the farmers, and at the same time they also wanted to sign online petitions so that this could be sent to the government, so that the government is convinced enough that these farmer legislations were not in line for the improvisation of the farmer. Then it seeks to encourage sympathizers to either find protests happening in your city, state, country and participate in large or in small numbers and organize one. Let's say for example there is a particular protest that is happening in a remote corner, or let's say it is happening in the city hub, or let's say for example in one of the places. If you can go there, go join that particular protest, or if you cannot join that particular protest, at least ask people to join that protest, or if there is no protest in that particular area, you start one particular protest. So all this meant that it was indirectly giving suggestions what methods have to be followed when it comes to the farmer protest during that particular period. But what is the major point of concern? The major point of concern is that there was an action plan in this particular toolkit which went on to suggest protesting near the Indian embassies, government officials, media houses which are globally present in India, which means to say that they wanted to stage a protest against the Indian embassies in outside the country as well as in the government offices in India as well, or the foreign embassies which are present in India. So all of this meant that they were instigating people, provoking the people, asking people to take up arms against the government, and this ultimately meant sedition. This ultimately meant provoking riots, and as a result this was taken as sedition and incitement to riots, and as a result what we have is this particular person Disha Ravi, who was arrested by the Delhi police. Why did the Delhi police arrest her? That is because this particular toolkit was initially launched on a Google application. This particular person Disha Ravi happened to edit this particular toolkit and the action plan that was supposed to be executed. So the police, assuming that she was also part of this sedition or instigating the riots, instigating the protests, have arrested Disha Ravi. In this particular backdrop, we have to understand whether the Delhi police is right or wrong. Have they followed all the procedures? The article currently goes on to say that according to the author, he says that without following the guidelines laid by the Delhi court on interstate arrest, they just barged into the state of Karnataka. They have arrested Disha Ravi, but they have made sure that she was produced within the 24-hour time period. So what is the major issue? The guidelines that were laid by the Delhi High Court were not being followed by the Delhi police. And whenever there is a jurisdictional change, let's say for example this particular issue surfaced in Delhi but its action plan was executed in Bengaluru, so what you have is different jurisdictions. One is in Delhi, the other is in Bengaluru in the state of Karnataka. Since law and order is an issue associated in the state list, what you require is the Delhi police ideally will have to inform the local police, take permission as well. In the present scenario, this was not being met, says the author. Because of all these issues, it means there was heavy handedness of the police, which meant that this is an international embarrassment for the Indian government, says the author. This is one part of the story. There is another part as well. Let's say for example, we have what is called as the political boundary. In case there are issues that are happening on the land, what we have is the army which will take and make sure that all these non-state and state actors are eliminated. Then we have the oceanic conditions. In case there is threat emanating from the water, we have the navy and the coastal guard who is able to protect us. And in case the threat is via the air, we also have the air force which is able to stop this particular obstruction. But what is happening in the world because of the internet penetration is that social media is giving new avenues for what is called as borderless crimes. What are these borderless crimes? Let's say for example, there is a particular issue in India, but someone else from some other country is able to tweet, and he has a fan following, and people in our country follow this up. They take up the arms against the government, they create instability in the country, and they voice opinion against the government. So ideally, if the people had some concerns, if they had their grievances, they can right away go to the government. They have the right to protest as well. But because some person who has a fan following instigate, this means there is an intelligence failure on the social media front as well. So going forward, this is one area where the government will also have to look at, is what we have to look at another narrative when it comes to this article. So going forward, when it comes to this particular issue, the government will have to be careful. Why? Because its international image is at stake. Why? Because there was executive high-handedness in such a situation. What the government will have to do is to take a nuanced approach, find out what is the larger conspiracy, get the evidences, get the factual data, and only then follow the procedures laid under the constitution, follow the procedures laid under the law books, and only then take actions. If not, what we will have is our international image which will take a beating, says the author in the present scenario. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. Labor reforms and technological advances within the fireworks industries are necessary to ensure safety and well-being among firework employees. Discuss. Next question. What is geospatial data? Why has the government deregulated geospatial data? Please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review, give positive feedback to your friends' answers, encourage them to write more. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.